You had a whole plan. Wake up early, start the project, get it done, but then you checked your phone, made tea, reorganized your desk, watched one video, which turned into 6, and suddenly it's 11 p.m., the deadline is tomorrow, and that thing you were supposed to do still hasn't been started. Sound familiar? You're not alone. And more importantly, you're not lazy. What you're experiencing has a name, a cause, and a psychology behind it that scientists have spent decades trying to understand. Today, we're going to get inside the minds of chronic procrastinators and finally understand why they do what they do and how they can overcome it. First, let's clear something up. Procrastination is not about poor time management. If it were, a planner or a to-do list would fix it. But anyone who has ever made a beautiful color-coded schedule and then ignored it knows that's not how this works. Procrastination is an emotion regulation problem. Psychologist Dr. Fuchsia Sorois defines it as voluntarily delaying an intended action despite knowing you'll be worse off for doing so. The key word? Voluntarily. Procrastinators aren't confused about what they should do. They know. They just don't do it because something emotional is getting in the way. That something is discomfort. The task feels boring, overwhelming, anxiety-inducing, or tied to a fear of failure. And the brain, ever helpful, finds a way to escape that discomfort right now, even if it creates bigger problems later. Here's where neuroscience gets fascinating. Inside your brain, two systems are constantly in conflict. The limbic system, which is ancient, emotional, and craves immediate pleasure, and the prefrontal cortex, which is logical, future-focused, and responsible for planning. In a well-regulated brain, the prefrontal cortex can override short-term impulses. But in a procrastinator's brain, especially under stress, the limbic system wins. It says, "This task feels bad. Do something else. Feel better now." And scrolling, snacking, or sleeping suddenly becomes irresistible. Research has even shown that chronic procrastinators have a larger amygdala, the brain's alarm center, and weaker connections between it and the part of the brain that controls action. Their emotional responses are simply louder, and their ability to quiet those responses and push through is weaker. Not all procrastinators are the same. Psychologists have identified several distinct patterns. The perfectionist. They don't start because they're afraid of starting wrong. If it can't be perfect, the thinking goes, why start at all? Perfectionism and procrastination are deeply linked. Research consistently shows that high self-critical perfectionists are among the most chronic procrastinators. The dreamer. They have grand ideas but find the boring, unglamorous steps of execution deeply unsatisfying. The vision excites them, the work does not. They live in future fantasies and avoid present effort. The worrier. Driven by anxiety, they overthink every possible outcome, and to avoid the stress of doing and potentially failing, they simply don't do. Avoidance feels like protection. It isn't. The defier. These are people who resist structure and authority. When told they should do something by a boss, a deadline, or even themselves, something in them pushes back. Procrastination becomes a quiet act of rebellion. The crisis maker. They thrive on the adrenaline of last-minute pressure. They've convinced themselves they work better under pressure, and the deadline becomes the only thing powerful enough to override the emotional avoidance. Here's what makes procrastination so self-perpetuating: guilt. After avoiding a task, most procrastinators feel terrible about themselves. They call themselves lazy, stupid, undisciplined, and that self-criticism doesn't motivate, it paralyzes. Studies by Dr. Michael Wall found that people who forgave themselves for procrastinating were actually less likely to procrastinate again on the next task. Self-compassion, not self-punishment, breaks the cycle. The shame spiral looks like this: avoid task, feel bad, self-criticize, feel worse, avoid task to escape the bad feeling, repeat. Understanding this loop is the first step to escaping it. Since procrastination is emotional, the solutions need to be emotional too. Here's what the research shows actually works. Name the feeling. Before you reach for distraction, pause and ask, what am I feeling right now about this task? Naming the emotion reduces its power over your behavior. Shrink the task. The brain resists vague, enormous tasks. Break it down until the next step is so small it feels almost silly. Then just do that one thing. Practice self-compassion. Remind yourself, struggling with this is human. You're not broken. Everyone finds certain things hard to start. Change the environment. Your surroundings trigger emotional states. A messy desk, an open social media tab, a noisy room, they all feed avoidance. A clean, quiet space with notifications off sends a different signal to your brain entirely. Procrastination is not a character flaw. It's a coping mechanism, a way of protecting yourself from discomfort that, ironically, creates more discomfort in the long run. The people who keep putting things off aren't weak-willed. They're often intelligent, sensitive, and deeply aware of their own failures, which is part of the problem. Understanding the psychology doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does make it possible to change it. So the next time you find yourself rearranging your bookshelf instead of writing that report, don't beat yourself up. Ask yourself, what am I really avoiding right now? The answer might surprise you. Thanks for watching. If this helped you understand yourself better, do me a favor to subscribe, like, comment, and share to someone you care about.